Hello, welcome back to Little Grain Podcast.
Sorry, I'm laughing.
With your two hosts, Mama Grain and Papa Grain, we are back for another resounding episode of Little Grain. Woo!
What is that? Is that in reference to something?
No, I just made that up.
Oh, I'm laughing because you're covering your little feet.
I don't think the audience is not ready for my feet. You know what? If we get more viewers, I'll reveal my feet.
Ew.
And then you can give me a wiki feet rating.
No, stop it.
I will tell you, it will be pretty high. They are delectable.
You don't have ugly feet.
No, I could be a feet mom.
But this is not how I
hobbits.
Imagined our.
Because they're hairy.
Oh, there was a stabbing reported near Golden Gate Avenue. Do you still get these alerts?
Is that YouTube okay to be like talking about that in like the first like like few minutes of the podcast?
I'm only saying this because we subscribed. We used to live in San Francisco and we subscribed to like alert thing. Actually, no, this is from the Ring app, and I think it's just because I have the Ring thing on my.
Sorry, I thought I heard some mic feedback.
Oh, from what?
The mics.
Maybe I was rubbing. I think I was rubbing.
Okay. I think we're good. Hi, welcome back, everyone. We are going to continue our story from last week. So
yes,
sweet little Mama Grain Sandra
before
here
we do that, can we say that Lucia is really the star of the show? Because she was over there, and I was like, because I had the pillow over my legs, and as soon as she took my pillow this way, she
laid down
in front of me.
Yeah, no, she just wants to be near us. She needs some TLC.
She does.
She is nasty.
I need to get her grooming.
She hasn't been washed in a little bit. We need to give her a shower.
No, she hasn't showered for a week.
This is still a long time for this dog. She's nasty.
You make her nasty. Because you give her all those like rawhide bones that
I do,
make her
it makes her like face all crusty.
No, but she does need her grooming. Like she needs a little haircut around her face.
Yeah. But let's continue with that story.
Yes. So, because I know you wanted to also talk about some other stuff, and I don't know.
I feel like, we continue with the story, we finish it up, and then there's other things that we can talk about real quickly, and then there's some announcements that we're going to give the peoples.
Announcements?
Yeah.
Do I know about these announcements?
Yeah. We talked
about it
yesterday.
Look at me. Okay, I think I know.
Do we have telepathy? I don't know if I projected anything to you.
No, I think I know.
Okay, yeah. So those are the announcements.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to hand it over to Sandra Mama Grain, and she's going to continue on with the story. We last left off when everyone was rushing in.
For the emergency C-section.
Which was crazy. And again, we'll have both perspectives. I think we'll start with yours, obviously, and have you speak about things.
Well, I also want to kind of go back for a second because I watched the episode 2, and I realized I didn't mention something very important. You're distracting me.
I'm sorry. I'm just adjusting. I'm sorry. I have to adjust as we go since I'm also doing audio. So
why do you have to adjust?
Just so that it's not blaring my ears and that it's at a good volume, but also good enough for me to edit later.
Okay. Are you going to be doing this though?
No.
The whole time?
No. This is a good area.
Okay.
This is a good area.
Sorry, it's just distracting. I just
sorry.
like to be listened to.
I'm sorry, Star.
Thank you.
No, you're good. You're good.
Am I going to be like Miranda Lambert? Did you hear what happened?
What happened to Miranda Lambert?
At her concert? That she stopped because she saw people taking selfies?
What?
Yeah.
Wait, people are going to take selfies at your concert. Like what?
Yeah, well, I guess that she stopped. I don't really know the big story just because I'm not a country singer. I also don't listen to Miranda Lambert, but it's been all over social media.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like the amount of ego to have to stop. Well, you know what? I don't know the whole story. Maybe there's something.
Yeah,
to
maybe
it.
we'll figure. Well, maybe I'll read it afterwards.
Yeah,
if we have time.
There's
but
someone.
I don't know.
There's someone who's gonna come across this and be like, "You don't know the whole story." And
yeah. So because we don't know the whole story, we probably shouldn't talk about it.
But yeah.
Anywho, so before I continue where we left off, I do have to mention something that I forgot to mention last episode. That was, I think, very important.
Continue.
So super brief. After I got the epidural and I was feeling great for a couple hours and my water broke.
Mm-hmm.
There was a point where the pain returned. Now, for those people who've never received epidural, for those who have, epidural doesn't really take away the entirety of your pain. you can still kind of feel the sensation. Some people can feel it more than others. I felt one side more numb than the other side, but it's still, the sensation wasn't strong for me to be like, I need more. Like, I was like, I'm okay feeling a little discomfort. Like, that wasn't the issue. The issue became that I felt a lot of pain. I started feeling a lot of pain again. Like, contractions were starting to feel the same way they did prior to the epidural. And I was like, well, there's no point in me having the epidural if I'm feeling this, right?
Yeah.
There is a button that they have next to your bed that you can click when you're feeling pain again. That is supposed to kind of give you like a little rush, give you like a new little dose of epidural. They do tell you that you cannot click, like if you click it, you have to wait 15 minutes, at least 15 minutes before you click it again. Well, again, I hadn't clicked it for like those, like, I don't know, I think it was like 2-3 hours that I felt great. So I didn't click it throughout those 3 hours. But then when I started feeling them again, I was like, okay, weird. Let me click it. And it gets you nervous. Like, I don't want to be clicking because
Yeah.
I also like it's based on your body type. And like, I'm very little. And I was scared that like too much epidural, like, I don't know the consequences of this, right?
Yeah,
Like,
you don't want to overdo it.
I don't want to overdo it, but I clicked it because I was feeling it really bad. And it like gave me some relief for, I don't know, 5 minutes maybe, tops. And then I started feeling it again. And I was like, well, this is a little weird, isn't it? Like, why am I feeling pain? Like, so I clicked it again. I think I clicked it twice. And again, only got relief for maybe 5-10 minutes. And when I felt it again, I was like, okay, I'm going to let it be for a second because maybe this just means that it's happening and I'm getting closer or whatever. And when they checked, that's when they realized that I was like at a 9.5. So I let it be for a second. But part of me was also really scared because, to be honest, the whole part of labor that scared me the most was the pushing part. I did not want to feel what they call the ring of fire, which is like when the baby's coming out. And if you don't have any,
It's also a Johnny Cash song.
okay,
Little ring of fire. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in there, but that's what I thought of as soon as you said it. I was like, oh, it's a Johnny
you know what
Cash.
I think about the ring of fire? The
the Hawaiian Islands.
No, they're not the Hawaiian Islands.
Oh no.
The Pacific Ocean.
Oh yeah. Because they're
tectonic plates.
It's
That's
tectonic. It's not like volcanoes all over there. It's just tectonic.
No, the tectonic plates like around the Pacific Ocean is called the
You know
ring
why
of
they
fire.
call it that? It's because that's what you feel when that baby
Or is
comes
it?
out.
Am I wrong?
I think it's tectonic plates. I think you're right. I think it's more of that than having volcanoes all around. I thought it was.
I mean, but there is volcanoes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Am I? No,
Your
I'm
body's
not wrong.
going all tectonic when the baby's coming out.
We should
It's like
check that. Well, they call it the ring of fire. I didn't want to feel that. I think that was the scariest part. I didn't even care about the contractions. I was like, the pain is pain, whatever. I think I was just the most scared of that part. That I had it in my head. I was like, I don't have a birth plan, but I wanted two things. I was like, I don't want to feel the pushing part. I wanted to be able to birth the baby without having to feel that part, like the whole full experience without epidural. But I also wanted to have skin to skin. I was very adamant about having skin to skin.
Were you very pressured or wanted to have like a full natural birth?
No.
Like without,
epidural?
Epidural
No.
or anything? No, you were okay with
No,
with
I
having...
was
not I was just because I know for a lot of women that is something that is talked about a lot, is having like, having drugs or not having drugs in order to have the birth. And I know it's a very split issue. It's not very, like, I know a lot of women are like, no, you can't have anything. You're supposed to feel everything. And then there's a lot of women who are just like, no, give me the drugs. Like,
there is
whatever.
a little bit of like shame and a little bit of judgment, I think sometimes women feel when it comes to going through labor and getting epidural.
Yeah.
I didn't feel none of that shame. I was like, give me the epidural. Like, the only moment I felt discouraged was when I thought I wasn't even like 4 centimeters and I felt like I already needed it.
Like, you thought you needed to get to a point, and then it's like, all right,
I wanted to get to a point because that was my goal. I wanted to get to a point because I know that the best time that they recommend getting epidural is like 6 centimeters is like a good.
Yeah.
But I also thought, like, you know what? I'm going to follow what my body says and I'm just going to do that. And I think I went into the whole experience feeling that way, even though
I mean,
Like
that
buy it
really
differently.
sucks that there's so much shame in those little things where it's like
It's stupid.
it does feel stupid because why not let people use whatever they need to, like, why do you have to have such an arrogance to like, oh, I had my
I
baby without drugs?
also
It's like, relax, girl, not everyone can do that, you know?
also everyone feels pain differently, and
Yeah.
everyone's body reacts to pain differently. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if that's repetitive, but what I'm trying to say is the pain that I feel is completely different to the type of pain that another woman's going to feel
Yeah.
because her body's built differently to mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um so when I can be like, "Oh, childbirth was really painful," and it has nothing to do with pain tolerance. I'm talking about like structurally, like it could just be differently, right?
Yeah.
Also, babies, like the size of a baby could make a difference. The way a baby's positioned.
Yeah.
It's not just so like I hate when people use the word like birthing is natural and it's supposed like yes, I understand that part. Birthing, millions of women have done it naturally,
Mm-hmm.
um, naturally and have at home or whatever, and that's fine. I'm not taking away from that, but I also think that going about it that way and saying that that birth should be natural, that your body's built for birth, does not help because who there are women who have difficulty like just going through a regular birth, and that
Yeah.
just causes them to feel maybe not worthy enough,
Yeah, it's very gatekeepy.
which I will mention something at like after the whole c-section
Yeah.
aspect of it, but um yeah.
Yeah, it just and we'll get back to the story. I just wanted to put in that I don't like that gatekeepy aspect of like what it means to be a mom in terms of like, you need to do these things in order to be considered a quote unquote good mother or have like what a natural mother should have. And it's like
Yeah.
it just feels wrong because it puts in this level of shame that's unnecessary,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the time that we live.
For sure.
Because even when you were talking about in the previous episode with your mom saying, it's like, look, you have the chance to not feel pain, take it. Like, she didn't have that choice. And there was a lot of choices that we have now that women in the past didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we going to now all of a sudden be like, no, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
If you do it for your own sake and you're just like, I wanted to do it for me, but I'm not going to shame anyone,
Yeah.
that's different.
Because there was a point, but this was before I was even pregnant. There was a point where I thought I had read this book about like natural birth,
Yeah.
and again, natural birth.
Yeah.
I'll say no, no epidural birth, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point where I was like, oh, I definitely would love to go that way. Like, I would love to go and birth my baby at a birthing center and all that stuff. I really genuinely thought that that's kind of how I wanted to go about it. I was like, but that was also coming from a place of privilege, and I don't say that lightly. To be able to do that, you do need money to be able
Yeah.
to birth your baby at a birthing center. And to be honest, the way that our experience went, where I had a great pregnancy, no, it was not high risk.
Mm-hmm.
I made it to 41 weeks, and still I ended up with an emergency C-section. I can't even imagine what would have happened if I would have gone to a birthing center. And I'm not shitting on birthing centers. I think birthing centers are great.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot that hospitals also do that it's not great, and that maternal health rate is not the best in the United States. I understand all those things, but it's just a lot of things in my head.
I mean,
And I could go on and on and on, but I think for the means of this podcast, we should stop right here.
Yeah.
Take it back to the story, and then we can discuss after we want to discuss that.
Yeah. No, let's go back to the story.
Because I really could go on and on about the shame
could. But continue with your story. Continue with what you were what we were talking about.
So anyway, I kept feeling pain, and they had me in these different positions to try to see if we could bring the baby down. Because another thing that I forgot to mention last episode was that when they checked me and I was already 9.5, sometimes some hospitals kind of allow the mom to start kind of practice pushing if the baby's already low enough. But Mia wasn't low enough. She was low, but she wasn't low enough.
She wasn't at that golden area.
Exactly.
Okay.
So They kind of wanted to still give her some time to be able to calm down. And they had me in like, remember what they had me in these like different positions with like pillows and stuff
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
try to see if she could kind of calm down. Didn't work. So when they had me practice pushing, and then, we
Mhm.
go into the story. But before that, when I was feeling a lot of pain still, um, I told the nurse, I was like, listen, I don't know why I'm feeling so much pain again. Like, this is kind of starting to become
Yeah.
like worse than what it was uh, before. Because at that point, and this should have been telling, I started to feel the contractions on my back. Like, I started to feel like a burning sensation from like my, what is that little bone?
Your like
My
tailbone?
tailbone,
Okay.
down. And I was like, but in my head, I thought, and when I mentioned it, I think we just assume, oh, the baby's coming down and it's probably maybe pushing sensation. But now that I think about it, I don't think I ever really had a pushing sensation.
Mm.
So that should have been telling to
Yeah.
what ended up happening. So anyway, she said, you know what? Let me go call the anesthesiologist and see if he can come and check on your epidural and maybe get you on like a higher dose. She's like, but because you're very little, we have to kind of figure this out. So he did come back and he did check, and he said, I'm only going to do half a dose more. Again, because your body's so petite that I don't want it. I don't want a lot. And I was like, okay. So he did. And it did help
Mm-hmm.
for maybe 30 minutes.
Oh.
And then it started going again. And at that point, I was like, you know what? Screw it. I am not going to worry about the pain anymore. I'm just going to let the pain happen. I'm going to use this because I was already at the point where I was pushing when I started feeling the pain again a lot. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, this is it. Like, I'm not going to waste time getting more epidural. Like, whatever mindset I had about not feeling the ring of fire at that point, I was like, whatever. I'll feel it. My mom did it with 4 daughters.
Which
I
is
was 10 pounds and I was like,
crazy.
I for
Your
sure.
mom is a trooper.
She's a freaking trooper. So, I was like, whatever. I'll just go through with the pain. I'll use it as like, and it's actually good to feel pain while you're contracting because then you know when you have to push. So you have to push every time a contraction hits. That's when you push. So it almost helped that I was able to feel it. Um, so anyway, fast forward the whole thing with the doctor telling me, you know what, this is not what you want to hear, but we're gonna go ahead and move forward with the with an emergency C-section. So she called the emergency C-section, and no joke, like 20 people rushed into that room. And it wasn't like they just rushed and were like, "Oh, here, like la la la." No, it was like like a scene of like an action movie where everything was just so insane, chaotic, but like organized, like organized chaos. That's what I would like to call it, because it wasn't like
Mm.
chaotic where no one know what to do. Like, every single person in that room had a reason to be in that room, and every single person was doing their job at the
Okay.
same time.
Okay.
So like, prior to all this happening, there was a guy who had come into our room and said, "Hi, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm the one who's going to be receiving when the baby is born. I'm going to grab the baby, and I'm the one who makes the babies cry." Right? So he's the one who checks. Remember when he
He's the
came in?
official baby crier.
Yeah. He's like, "I will make sure your baby cries." And
Which is, as a parent, when you hear your baby cry, you want to do everything you can to soothe them. It's like one of the few times you're like, I need to hear them cry. Crying is a fantastic thing.
yeah. So he had introduced himself. So when he came in, he was doing his thing. He was heating up the little bed or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
taking it with him, I think. And I just remember there was a nurse, and she was like the head nurse. She came in, turned me on my side because to help the baby's heartbeat.
Is this the same head nurse that didn't do her job correctly?
No.
Oh, there's a different one.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Lulu, no
Lulu's-
barking.
Lou. Hey, come here. Lou, come here. Come on, lay down, lay down, lay down.
She's like,
Sorry. Oh, she might go bark.
yeah. She might go. Maybe you
If
can't
you
hear.
hear Lucia barking, I do
So sorry.
apologize. She's just talking to her friends.
Her friends
The
were like
neighborhood.
arguing.
She is arguing. She's like, "Hey, this is my territory." Continue. Sorry.
So no, this is the head. Like, this was the head.
So this is above her.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she came in and she like turned me on my side, and had me in that position because they wanted to make sure the baby's heartbeat was still like heart rate was still going up and down,
Mm-hmm.
and not just like up and down, like down and up. I
Oh
think
shit!
they called it.
It was fluctuating. Is that the
I forgot.
term I want to
No,
use?
is it diesel?
Diesel? Oh, de-escalating? No,
Um, no, there's a name for. I should have looked this up because,
it's
gosh,
okay.
there's so much that happened that day that I feel like we haven't even mentioned. So,
Well,
whew,
well, look up
hold on.
look up what the term is real quick.
Uh,
When the baby's heart drops, that's what we're looking up. But yes, there was a lot that went on. I think again there was like two perspectives to it because there was obviously Sandra's perspective being treated and such, and then there was my perspective with her mom where we kind of were thrown to the side almost when everyone came in because obviously they had to focus on Sandra, but we were so confused. Like I remember having to kind of console your mother a little bit because she was freaking out because all of a sudden these people come in. She doesn't speak English. She speaks only Spanish, so everyone's talking in English. She has no idea what's going on. I'm holding her. I don't speak Spanish, but I'm like everything's going to be okay. Um and just making sure that she was fine and that you were okay too. So
yes,
there was like a lot of that going on. What was the term? What was
diesel,
diesel?
diesel. Yeah. So the
Like
dips and fetal
like gasoline diesel?
diesel, DECEL.
DECEL.
Yeah. So the dips in fetal heart rate that occurred as the end of a contraction blah, 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 usually because low oxygen. This is not making it okay.
Wait, you want
It's
me to read
usually
it?
because of low oxygen, which causes the fetus to slow its heart rate to save energy. Late
Oh.
deceleration may mean that a fetus is tired and has a dwindling reserve. So I
Oh
think she wasn't
shit.
getting enough oxygen. So her heart rate was dieseling. Diesel.
Dieseling. Okay. And then again you said she flipped around so she wasn't
Hold on, I haven't even said that
Oh, I'm
part.
sorry. I'm sorry. I skipped ahead. Ah.
But I do wanted to mention because again, there's so much stuff that happened that day that for some reason it felt weird. So I'm sorry for making this all over the place. I really do apologize, but I hope you follow. I hope the people follow along.
Well,
Because can
okay.
I
Yeah.
finish?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm trying to explain it in my head. There's just so much that
No, you're good. You're good. Keep going. I was trying to like bring it back to like this is what's happened so far.
no, hold on. Do you remember
Hmm.
when I was having contractions? At the beginning, after they had put the pump in, the little balloon in,
Yeah.
and they were like, they encouraged us to go on a walk to like try to get my contractions because they're like, it's good for you to walk, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
we were on that walk,
Yeah.
and on the way back from the walk, there was an emergency C-section being taken, and all we heard, and like people were running in the hall,
Mhm.
like all the nurses were running in the hall with the woman in the bed. That was so telling of what was going to happen to us.
I remember even saying it's like I hope that doesn't happen to us.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
it happened to
And no,
us.
and remember that the nurse was like, the heart dieseled, the baby's
Mm.
heart dieseled, or something like that.
I don't
And
remember
I
her
remember
saying
I
that.
went back to the room and I was like, what does this mean? Because I was worried. I was like, is that going to happen to me? Which
I didn't pick up
yeah,
on that term, but you know, if she said it, oh
I
my
did.
gosh.
So when it happened to us, I remember clearly you said, "Oh my gosh, that's so scary," and I hope it doesn't happen to us. And then I remember our nurse was like, "Oh, that was probably not the best time for you to be out in the hallway. We're so sorry. I hope you're okay. Like
Those are the
that
things
didn't scare you."
that
I
freaked
was
me
like,
out
"I'm
about the
okay."
hospital. Those are the things that freaked me out about the hospital was like those instances where it's like, oh, let's go 0 to 100 real quick. Something bad's happening, and I'm like,
Yeah, yeah. Except I think our situation was even worse because
Mhm.
when they took the mom out in the bed, it was really just the mom, her support people who were there with her, and like a doctor that I just saw them rushing.
Yeah.
When we got rushed out of the room, it was like a entourage, like full of 15
It was a
people.
full Grey's Anatomy moment.
Yeah,
Like it was a full on
full
like
on. So
ER like danger. This person may or may not get out of here alive sort of
so
situation.
when I get told again, I'm turned to my side and I get told that I'm gonna have a C-section. I told myself, take a deep breath and just relax. You're gonna be okay. I honestly felt so at peace with the moment that I thank God for letting me feel that way because I really, really felt not scared at all. And
Mhm.
I'm not even kidding. Like, I'm not lying. I was not scared.
Mhm.
Not in that moment.
Yeah.
I was not scared at all. I was just at peace with it. And I remember looking at my mom, and she was freaking out because in my family, we've never had C-sections. Like, none of my aunts have had a C-section. My mom didn't have a C-section. My sisters didn't have C-sections. So we didn't really know. Like, the only person who had a C-section that was close to us was my cousin, who had a baby like around the same time Maria had a baby, but my
Mm-hmm.
mom wasn't around to
Yeah.
like be around the way, and not especially not an emergency C-section. The emergency really threw us off and really raised the stakes for the whole situation, and I feel like it scared my mom a lot
Oh yeah,
because
100%.
she was listening and kind of understanding was that the baby's heart rate was dropping, that I was also not like I already had a fever, um that the rush of people coming in, obviously she was freaking out, so she started crying,
Mm-hmm.
and all I saw was Charlie hugging her, and then you were taken away because they were then you can explain.
Yeah, well, everything up to this part is, yeah, the same. I think for me and your mother, it was different just because so we're going to have to like go back a little bit. So when we were in the room and we were kind of taking care of you, there was only one bed. So me and your mother were sharing one bed, like taking 2 hours to sleep, like doing shifts and trying to stay up with you because you didn't sleep at all.
Mm-hmm.
You were up pretty much the entire time because you were in so much pain. You maybe got like an hour or two,
Maybe an hour or two
like every now and
of
then
like weird sleep.
of weird sleep, and then maybe like 45 minutes of like a nap that you
Mm-hmm.
would have periodically throughout this entire time. So we were trying to stay up with you, I went down and got food and all that sort of thing. So when it came to the pushing, we all pushed with you. Like I remember like pushing my body into Sandra as she was pushing as well, just to give some sort of like kinetic reaction to her.
Kinetic reaction. What does that even
Well,
mean?
just like a physical, like, I'm pushing, you're pushing. It's not like just like, oh, you're pushing and I'm just holding you, you
No, yeah.
know? So there's like there's a physicality to it. So we're in there with you the entire time. So when everyone rushes in, it is so confusing and scary, obviously, for your mom, for me.
Quick question, did you hear when the doctor told me about the C-section?
Yeah, I heard it and my heart dropped. I was like, oh shit.
Okay.
Because most of the time, anytime I heard of a C section, I not only heard the C section, I heard the emergency part, which
Mhm.
was like, that's not good. C sections, obviously, people have survived them. It's not like, I mean, I guess I don't know what the mortality rate is with C sections, but the emergency part of that was freaking me out. And then everyone's tone was freaking me out too,
Yeah,
because everyone is very serious.
very.
So it was scary. The only thing I could do was try to console your mom because she was freaking out. And then they took me to the side and were like, we're going to need you to fill out these papers to give us permission to do this.
Yeah.
And then they were giving me scrubs to put on. And again, giving you all that backstory on like us staying up with you. I hadn't had a lot to eat,
Mhm.
not a lot to drink, like kind of, I don't want to say surviving, but that was kind of the vibe, was kind of like just
Yeah.
getting to the end of this
And this
thing.
was like around 7 in the morning.
7 in the morning of like no sleep for like pretty much a full day.
Yeah. So I just want to mention my water broke around midnight,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't until 7 in the morning
That thing started to go.
that they had to intervene with an emergency C-section.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
they threw me scrubs. I started to put them on. I'm getting lightheaded.
I
Like,
remember seeing someone help you put them on.
yeah, because I was getting very lightheaded. Like everything was happening so fast that I didn't have enough energy. Like I almost looked to you for strength because you seemed fine
Mhm.
and I was not okay.
Yeah.
Like I was getting woozy. I was like, "Oh my god." And then one of the nurses, or I don't know if he was a nurse or a doctor, but he noticed that and he was like, "Hey, we'll get you something." And they got me like a juice. I downed it and I was like, "All right, I'm ready to go," because I needed something. I needed like a sugar rush or something
Yeah.
just to keep me on track.
Yeah.
So after he got me that, he like wiped down my phone because it was dirty or something. Or he said it's like phones are nasty, so he wiped it down for me. I downed it. I was like, all right, let's go. And
Wait, I
I,
didn't even know about that phone detail.
yeah,
They probably, because I know that they said, like, Dad, I just briefly remember saying, like, Dad, don't forget your phone for photos.
yeah,
Which it was like the most, I think that hearing that made me feel like, okay, we're still fine. Because if they're saying photos,
I didn't even register that. I was still in
yeah.
red alert mode. So all that happening, I get the scrubs on, I down the juice, I sign the papers, he wipes down my phone, and then I go into the ER, which
And
I'm gonna give it back to you.
yes, because prior to like as they're taking me out of the room, like again in a rush, like running,
Yeah.
I just look back and I see my mom on the phone, which now I know that she was talking to my sister because she had texted the group chat saying like she's getting an emergency C-section, and then my sister called, my older sister, and she was on the phone, and I see her crying, and I just remember looking back and I'm telling her, "Mommy, I'm okay."
Mhm.
Like I kept looking, I was like, "Mommy, I'm okay." Like, "I'm okay, Mommy."
Oh my
And
god.
she was crying and she was trying to like give me her blessing, and I was like being rushed out of the room. Um and the moment that they opened the doors to the OR, it's like
OR OR is
operating room.
okay, I called it ER. Sorry.
Oh, the OR.
The OR. I meant OR.
Um the moment that they open the doors, it's like bright lights, like fluorescent lights, and it totally like I was like, I'm in an episode of Grey's Anatomy. So not only was this like my dream,
Oh my god.
but this was also terrifying at the same time, because I was like, it's me happening, like I'm experiencing this, but it's also like, whoa, like I never thought this was gonna happen to me. And I was like, I wanted a dramatic birth. I got a dramatic birth. But I would
Mhm.
always joke about dramatic births. Like, I don't want a dramatic birth, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If you know who I am, I was like, ooh. Also like taking everything in. But also like knowing that this was scary. Um, but that was that's kind of how I felt going in. But the moment that they were like, can you try to like move yourself over to the bed, because they're like, you're still fine enough, and I was like, okay. So I moved myself. That's the moment where it wasn't fear, but it was definitely vulnerability that kind of hit me, because I was fully naked in a
Mhm.
bed and everyone was touching me. Multiple people were touching me.
That's
Um,
that's no
they
bueno.
had to put back, because they had removed, because of the pushing, they had removed uh the catheter that they insert
Mm.
when you get an epidural. You have to get a catheter. Well, they had removed it when I was doing the pushing, so they had to like put that back on. um and they were like, they had given me a shot, they were doing all these things. Another anesthesiologist had introduced himself, which he was such an angel. He was so sweet. um he was really calming, the only one calming me down, which I understood why, because everyone else was busy doing their work. And before you went in there was a moment where my OB yelled at someone, because not yelled, just spoke really firmly, um because she said, I need this, and one of the nurses turned around, she's like, well, I can't do that because I'm already doing this. And she said, I don't care who does it, I just need this right now. And I was like, okay. In my head I was like, I think that was the moment where I got a little more freaked out, because I was like, they're rushing so much
Mhm.
that it worries me that Mia's not okay.
Yeah. And also you
But
pick up on the tone.
you pick up on the tone.
Mhm.
Everyone was like only speaking strictly what they needed to do. No side conversations of any sort.
And to
Which
interject real quick, if you ever see like Grey's Anatomy or ER or any of those hospital movies, when everything's very like sharp and just like, this is what I need, we need to do this, I need 10 cc's of whatever, it's it's usually the part of the episode where shit's going wrong, or they need to save someone or something, or they leave you on a cliffhanger or something
yeah.
like that. So it's usually the most intense part. So you're picking up on that and you're like, crap.
Yeah, like that's when I was like, okay, something's definitely off. Like if they're really rushing this, I'm really scared for Mia.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even scared for myself.
Mhm.
I'm scared for Mia.
Yeah.
Um and so at the same time the anesthesiologist was putting more of the, which is really funny, because now I just, for some reason, I'm going back and I'm remembering a lot of little details that I don't think I've told you, but I remember him saying like, wow, whoever did your first round of epidural did a really good job. And I know he was saying that to comfort me, to try to like distract me a little bit, but I was like,
Yeah.
in my head I was like, oh,
I
they
don't give a
great.
shit. Like, good for him.
Good. I'm like glad. And he even mentioned it to another nurse, like, doctor, whatever, because he was I think he was Latino, the first one who did the epidural. Was like, doctor, whatever, did a really good job, but like, wow, he's really good at this like line thing or what. And I was like,
I always wonder if that's like an HR thing where it's like, yeah, really talk up your neighbor nurses or doctors to just make the
no,
environment a lot better.
I do gotta say that my anesthesiologist, the first one that did the epidural,
Yeah.
he did a great job because I didn't feel
He was
nothing.
good. No, he was really good because he was very good at saying like, just keep her still. I'm gonna be back. Like very calm about it.
He was also really good about explaining every single thing that he was doing and doing. Very respectful, so sweet, but also like he was great. So when he was talking him up, I was like, I was okay with it, but I was like, there's just so much happening at the same time that you're focusing on a lot of different things, and I'm like,
I
this
would
is
like
an
to say
odd
all the
conversation.
doctors and most of the nurses that we dealt with were very kind. They were very kind and very good at their job. And, you know, they were very present during the entirety of things. Were there some hiccups? Yes, and we'll get into that. But I would like to preface that these people were very nice, especially in the OR. And
Everyone was really kind. So he's putting the epidural, and he's, you know, at this point he said, you're gonna start shaking. And I was shaking like a leaf. Do you remember that?
Oh, 100%.
I was shaking so hard.
100%. I will go into my story.
And
I want you to
have you
continue
tied,
yours,
so
though.
they have you with your arms out. And I was shaking so much, but I also I was so exhausted. Like all of a sudden, just like I was feeling so tired. I couldn't even keep my eyes open in a weird, but like it was like a delusion. It almost felt like a dream. Everything was just so weird. And I felt like it was like the weirdest thing. So I remember making eye contact with the guy who was a student who was allowed to be part of my birth, because prior when shit was getting real back in the room before they declared it a C-section, they had come to Charlie and said, hey, because everyone was like in the room figuring out what was happening. This was like the nurse was talking, the OB was talking to me about potentially a C-section, and there was like another nurse talking to Charlie about probably having a student like watch my birth, and Charlie's like, well, I have to ask Sandra, and Charlie was asking me, and I was like, yeah, that's fine, I don't mind.
Yeah, because it was funny that he came up to me where I'm like, I'm not the one being cut out. I mean, I understand because I'm her husband. Like, I'm the person.
But when they originally asked for the vaginal birth, that what they thought was going to happen.
Yeah, and so I think you were okay with that, and then it turned into a C-section.
And when we said okay, the OB I think that's when the OB came in, and things were getting kind of weird, and someone said to the other nurse who had brought the guy, and she was like, now it's not the time.
Yeah.
And
originally we said yes to when we thought it was going to be a vaginal birth. I asked Sandra because obviously I'm not the one splayed out. And then as like almost, I want to say like a few seconds after that, it turned into emergency C-section. But we already said yes, so he came along.
It was fine.
It was fine. I mean, ideally, probably we would have said no if we knew it was going to go in that direction. Yeah. But again, it was okay.
Yeah, he was fine. He thanked me later, and I was like, you just saw my whole intestines, but okay.
Yeah.
Fully naked. Which doesn't even, like, you really don't feel any shame, and you're like, whatever.
Yeah.
I just feel
at that point you're just like, we just need to get
out,
through
make
this.
sure this baby's fine.
Yeah.
So anywho, I was shaking like a leaf. I was so like, oh my God, this is feeling like really weird. And that's when they started to pinch my belly and say like, can you feel this? Can you feel this? And I said, yes, I can feel it. They're like, no, but do you just feel the sensation of us like pulling at your skin, or do you feel the actual pinch? And I'm like, no, I feel the actual pinch. So between the anesthesiologist and my OB, they were debating whether they needed to just put me down fully, which I didn't say anything because you have like an oxygen mask as well.
Is it put you down or put you under?
Put me under.
Put you under. Sorry, put you down. I was like, you're not a dog. What?
I was about to die. You're about to kill me? No. Put me under. And I forgot to mention that you have like an oxygen mask on. Mm-hmm. That I think that also did help the situation because I'm a little claustrophobic, and having that on, I was like, this is not helping, and I felt really nauseous. not horribly nauseous, but nauseous. And my mouth felt so dry, so exhausted, just awful. And I kept saying, like, no, I can feel the pinch. And they're like, well, we might have to put her under. And in my head, I was like, please don't put me under. Please don't put me under. Because all I could think about in that moment was like, if they put me under, I'm not going to know if Mia's okay.
Yeah.
And I don't want to wake up
To like bad news or
to
something.
bad news.
Yeah. No, 100%.
And that's going to make me cry.
It's okay.
Um,
It's okay. We're here.
So she's fine. So, but I couldn't say it out loud because I was so exhausted. Like, I can only describe it as being so exhausted. And I think it was because I hadn't slept for 2 days straight. Thankfully, my OB said, no, we're not going to do that. And I think she put like local anesthesia, like right in that area. And my like they injected me with something around that area, I think. And I didn't feel it. They did something, and then they just went ahead and started the C-section. And they just, the anesthesiologist kind of was telling me what I was going to be feeling. And he was telling me, okay, you're going to feel a lot of pressure. But it almost felt like tugging. I didn't really feel like pressure. And I felt like tugging because, oh, okay, hold on. Sorry. So as they're like, she said, I'm just going to put this, and that should do it. Did it do it? No, it didn't do it. But they just went ahead and started. So I didn't feel the cut per se. But I did feel like the tugging. And the doctor, because when they were deciding whether they were going to put me under or not, and the doctor said, no, I'm just going to go ahead and do this, it was very rushed. Like, I'm talking like they took me out of the room. This was like 7:20 when they took me out of the room. And the baby was born in 5 minutes at 7:25. So all of this, from the moment that they called this is an emergency C-section to the moment that the baby was born, is a 5-minute thing.
Yeah.
I just want everyone to know that this is happening all very quickly. We're describing it with time, slowly, but it happened really quickly.
Yeah.
Everything's happening very quickly.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, I can't wait. We can't wait anymore. Like, we have to go in there. So listening to like, we have to go in there freaked me out. And I'll just remember feeling all the sensations of them tugging and tugging and tugging. And there was a moment where the last part where it's like really heavy and I felt pain. Like, I felt like something was being pulled out of me. And I yelled. I said, ow, ow, ow. And that's when we heard her cry.
Yeah.
Now, we will put a disclaimer before at this part because I don't want anyone who's scared of it to watch this.
Yeah.
And also, this is not how it goes for everyone. This was a very specific situation that happened to me. It does not mean that emergency C-sections are going to happen this way. It does not mean that if you end up having an emergency C-section, you're going to feel the exact same way. It doesn't mean that your epidural is not going to work. Like, it doesn't mean that your anesthesia is not going to work. It will work. Most often than not, it does work. And after the C-section and after, like, these last couple of months, I've been doing actually a lot of research, and I've been reading a lot of like stories of people who got emergency C-sections and they didn't feel a thing. So this is just what happened to me. Doesn't mean it's going to happen to anyone else. So anywho, that we heard her cry, and I just remember Charlie saying, "It sounds like a duck."
Yeah, for me it sounded like wah, 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 wah.
Yeah, it did sound like a duck, like a duck call.
Which, in hindsight, maybe that you could already tell there was an issue going on, but that's what it sounded like at the time.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. So you were holding my hand, and then the doctor came over and had me on his arms and showed Mia to us, and I just remember seeing her, and she was like all hair. Like full on like hair all over her forehead. All hair. And purple. You saw the purple in her.
Yeah, she was purple.
And I think in my own little like world of like what's happening to myself, I didn't realize the gravity of it either. Because I was like, okay. And I think that also covered it up really well about like what was happening to me. So they took Mia to the table to get the liquid out and to get her breathing and to weigh her and do all that stuff. Charlie goes, they're like, Dad, do you want to come? And Charlie takes some photos. He sees her, whatever. They realize that she's not really breathing well. she is struggling with taking like full breaths in, and they tell me, it's normal. And this is like, they're still sewing me up. So someone's coming to tell me. They tell me, this is normal for C-section babies. So when babies come out of the birth canal, uh, they get like their chest gets like, how do they worded it? It's like, I guess their body gets squeezed enough that like all the like amniotic fluid comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it comes out. When a baby comes out through via C-section, that doesn't happen because they don't go through the birth canal. So then they kind of have to manually
Would it
be
be
able to take it
like
out.
when the baby comes out of the birth canal, it's akin to like a tube of toothpaste when you're like squeezing all
Yeah,
that
you're
out
squeezing.
and you
They're
squeeze
squeezing.
out that fluid and then
Yeah.
everything's good
For C-section babies, they tend to not
because they're not
do
coming
that.
out of anything.
Yeah. Um. So they're like, we need to take her to. We're gonna put her in the take you to the NICU and check and keep her for observation. And I'm like, okay, but they kept reassuring me she's fine, she's okay, nothing bad, and she is fine. In retrospect, there's worse cases, and we were lucky that it was really just for a second.
Yeah.
It was a scary moment, but it was okay. She was gonna be okay. But they took her to the NICU, and they also needed to give her antibiotics because I had had a fever, and they were scared that whatever had caused my fever was something that she was also dealing with. So they had to give her antibiotics, and they had to put her on antibiotics, but they also have to be testing her every couple hours to make sure that there was no infection or anything else.
Yeah.
Um, as they're sewing me up, things really calmed down because then that's when the doctor started having their daily conversation about like their weekends or whatever. And I knew that everything was okay with me because I'm like, okay, they're just talking at this point and I'm okay with it. But I was feeling so exhausted that I was like, and I couldn't even handle being like this. I told the anesthesiologist, can I put my hands here? Because I'm shaking so much. I was like this, shaking. And Charlie kind of kept going back and forth between the baby. And then when they took the baby to the NICU, I told him, I was like, can you go to the room to tell my mom that everything's okay? I just need her to know that I'm okay and the baby's okay. So he did. Do you want to explain that part?
So, should I just go into like my perspective of everything up to that point? So, again, everything what Sandra is saying is 100% what happened. For me, um, at this point, after I've had my juice, I put on my scrubs, I go into the OR. Like she said, it is like Grey's Anatomy. It is like like General Hospital. Every hospital show you could think of, it was like that. It was bright, fluorescent lights. There was a blue tarp separating like her head from the rest of her torso. And I made it a point not to look at your insides. Like the bottom like I was like, I'm only gonna be here with your head because I didn't think I'd be able to last if I saw them cut you open and everything. Just because I was already like woozy coming in. I'm not about to see like, actual human organs and stuff, and especially my
I
wife
really
in
did
that
not want
state.
you to see my organs either.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna stay here. But my whole perspective at that point was just like, I'm gonna be here for Sandra. I'm gonna hold her as much as I can. This is what I need to do. And it's very much like was goal oriented. Be here for Sandra. Be here for Sandra.
And you
So
were.
thank you. I hope I did a good job.
You did. You
Um,
you you were. I know that you say that you weren't calm at all, that you were like
I was
frantic,
freaking out.
but in the outside you look so calm.
I was like very much trying to be like, I need to be calm, but in the inside, it was like Inside Out when they hit the red like emergency button. Everything was going off. Like it was bad. It
I
was
just
it was.
remember that scene. I was like,
um, but yeah, I was holding you. You were shaking like a leaf, and that was freaking me out. But is it an anesthesiologist who's next to us?
yeah.
So he was just saying, that's natural, that's normal. I was like, okay, okay, just be here for her. It's like, I got you, honey. I'm holding you. And obviously they're opening you up. And the way the OR is, like, right, if I'm right here and your head is like kind of right here, next to us, there's like this I want to say like a bookshelf with files in it, and it's kind of like glass doored.
Yeah.
So you could see reflections of things that I was just like kind of peering over to see, but then I was like, don't look at that. Don't look at that. Just focus on her. Don't look at that. And it was just crazy. Eventually we heard the baby cry. She sounded like a duck to me. She was like, wah, 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 and it sounded like a duck call to me. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness.
Which, if you know Charlie, you know that he goes duck hunting with his
Me and
dad.
my dad, and it comes from my dad's dad, my grandfather and him going hunting. We've gone hunting, duck hunting specifically, our entire lives, me and my brother and my dad. So it's a very big tradition for us. So we're very used to what a duck sounds like. And so when I heard it, I was like, that sounds like a duck call or like a duck or something
Yeah.
like that. So I remember hearing that. And then they bring the baby over, and the baby's purple, obviously because of poor blood flow or something like that. But that's what I noticed first. I was like, why is her baby purple? But I didn't say anything because I was just
Yeah, you
like,
didn't say anything.
because I was like, I don't want to freak you out.
In my own delirium, I didn't even put two and
You
two
didn't
together.
even seem to be bothered by it. I'm not going to say anything. And I'm just like, let the doctors do what they need to do. Just be here for her. It's like, I remember them showing us, be like, here's your baby. And I was like, okay. Like, just like, I don't know what you want me to do with this situation, but thank you for getting the baby. And then they told me there was a part of the OR, there's this corner where they're kind of tending to Mia. So they allowed me to go over there. And so I went from your head over to that area, not looking at your body. I was just like, do not look that way. Just go. I was like, straight there, straight back. Like, do not look anywhere else. Just because I didn't want to faint. I did not want to not be there for you. So I was like, go to A to B, A to B. That's it. So went there, and she's obviously having trouble breathing. They have like a breathing machine on her. They're trying to pump air into her.
I was not aware of this.
Yeah, it was intense. But I remember telling, not to be super sappy, but I was saying like, "You're my little fighter. Come on, keep going. You're my
Yeah.
little fighter." And I remember she grabbed my pinky.
Oh, now
Yeah.
that she said daddy, I want to
So
cry.
I guess technically I had first contact with her.
You did.
So she grabbed my pinky. She was like breathing, but they were doing stuff, and I was like, "All right, I need to go back to Sandra." Like I wanted to stay there with Mia, 100%, but I knew that you also needed me. So I was like, all right, you seem okay.
You came back, and then I was like, go back with Mia. I'm
Yeah,
okay.
she was like, get over there. I was like, no, I want to be here with you. I want to make sure you're okay, making sure you were fine. And just kind of, I think I did it twice. I was,
You did.
Yeah,
You did a
I
couple
went,
times,
a
actually.
couple times I went there, went back, went there, went back. And then ultimately, I think they were kind of done with you. So
Well,
they
they
were
had
so,
already taken Mia out of the room by the time that they were done with me.
and then someone said, I remember distinctly, I think Dad needs to go and take a nap.
Well, prior to that, the OB came up to me. They were done, and she's like, "Okay, so we finished." She said, "I'm really sorry that how things turned out." She said, and I'm sorry that you couldn't have skin to skin with her. I really wish it would have been different. It would have, everything would have turned out differently." She's like, "But uh she's okay. She's obviously having some trouble breathing." She actually really reassured me. She's like, "She's okay. She's just having a little trouble breathing." They had to take her into they have to take her into the NICU to make sure she's. And the reason why I wasn't freaking out was because both my sister's babies were put in the NICU as well. So like Fabian was had an issue with blood sugar,
Mm.
his sugar levels, his sugar levels, but they didn't take him to the NICU until after they were gonna, I think, a day after
Okay.
he was
So
born, or like the same day, but like a couple hours later.
the
So like
NICU
Maria
part
had,
was a little like, oh,
yeah, and like Stevie was having difficulty, I think, also breathing a little bit,
okay.
because when he was crying, the cry seemed weird, and they were like, you know what, we're gonna take him to the NICU for observation. So I just assumed that it was a situation like that, where they were just being taken to the NICU for that reason, because they never had to have a little breathing tube or anything.
Yeah.
So I just assumed in my head when they were telling me that that's how it was going to be. And I'm like, oh, they'll take her to me in like a couple hours.
Yeah.
So I was calm about it. So then they took me out of the room and they put me in this like side room to kind of get better for like a second before they took us to our room. that's when they told you, like, I think
Yeah.
Dad should go take a nap.
Yeah, they told me it's like, hey, I think Dad needs to go take a nap, which I was like, I'm in agreement because I am exhausted. I am delirious. I am drained of energy. I need to go lay down. So what I did is I got out of the OR. I walked all the way back to the room that we were in the entire time,
Laboring.
the labor room. I went to the bathroom. I took off my scrubs and I laid down and took like a 2-hour nap. Not Mia. Lucia's barking. Sorry. Lucia's barking. Come here. Come here.
She's let
Okay,
her be.
whatever. So I went and took like a 2-hour nap and then woke up as if like what's a like it's the Walking Dead and I've woken up from like a coma, like what's going on? What year is it? What's happening?
Lulu, come
So,
here.
oh, Lou, stop barking.
Um,
Come here.
so when they put me in that little room,
Mm-hmm.
because now I have to explain from my mom's.
Yeah, so I just woke up from a nap. So I want actually Sandra to take over at this point because I think it's important.
While you were taking a nap, this was
All right,
this was
hold on,
happening to
everyone.
me.
I'm gonna get the dog.
I'll explain while you go get the dog.
What? She's right here. Come here. Come up here.
Sit.
Lay down. Lay
Sit.
down. Lay down.
Sit.
Lay down. Lou.
She's like, what do we do? Sit or lay down?
Oh my God, Lou. Hi. Hi. Okay. Okay. Hi there. Please continue.
So when I was taken out to this, where I was taken out of the room into the C-section, my mom was on the phone with my sisters, and they were freaking out because, again, my mom didn't understand half of what was happening. So she, I think, scared my sisters, especially my older sister. So my older sister called Dulce. I have 2 older sisters. The other one, and this was again 7 a.m, so they hadn't left work, and sorry, I was thinking about how Maribel was at school. Maribel, the youngest, she was already at work, but the older ones weren't. So when Maria called Dulce to explain what was happening, Dulce was freaking out. She thought I was dying.
Yeah.
Because the way that Maria told her was not the most gentle way.
Mm.
And she thought I was like one of us was going to die.
Oh,
and she said I had to be strong because I thought you were dying. And I was so scared. And and I was dressing Stevie up so I could take him to school to drop him off so then we could head to the hospital. So that's what we did. And like when we dropped Stevie off, I started crying. And Maria was like, "Why are you crying? Like, what's going on?" She's like, "Because what he just told me, like, I can't believe you're like, no, like, this way." And she's like, "No, like, she's okay. She's just having an emergency C-section, but we don't know what's happening." And she was like, "You scared me." Like, she was scared. She thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
Which it was not that.
Mm-hmm.
But she got really scared. And as they were driving up and I got to the hospital by the time that I was already out in that little waiting room, and Dulce saw me first. Dulce and my mom saw me first. And I remember Dulce just going to me and hugging me. And I was like, I'm okay. But I was so delirious still. I was like, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay. I had like the driest mouth and I couldn't handle it. And I kept asking.
It's probably from all the drugs.
And I kept asking if I could get like gum or something. And the doctor's like, I can give you gum. The nurse was like, I can give you a piece of gum. That should help with the nausea as well. So, for some reason I was like, should I not be able to, like, can I sleep? But so then Dulce's like, okay, let me like, she said, we're here. We're going to go downstairs while you they prep you. And then once you're in your room, we'll go into your room. I was like, okay. So I remembered asking the nurse, I was like, can I take a nap? And she said, yeah, go ahead, take a nap. And I was like, okay, but can I turn to my side? She's like, yeah, sure, do whatever you want.
This nurse is like, yeah, just, I don't care.
She was a little rude, actually.
Yeah.
Because I was like, because in my brain, I'm like, I just had a C-section. Can I turn to my side? I didn't know how to be a certain position. I didn't know.
Yeah.
So she was like, yeah, like, do whatever you, and I was like, okay. So I turned to my side and I tried to sleep, but I couldn't because, like, you can't really sleep in that environment.
Well, yeah, you were just cut
and
open.
I remember the head nurse, the one that had taken me to my side earlier, came into the room, and this is so funny. She said, Oh yeah, we just had a mom complain about the room that she was put in, and I remember being like, so I was like, "Ugh, that person's so entitled, complaining about the room that they just took her in, not knowing that they were gonna probably."
Yeah.
So hold on.
Wait. Can I just preface? This is when the niceties kind of dwindle and shit. Not that it becomes more emergency. It just we really see the shitty side of the healthcare system
So
sometimes.
apparently, the day Mia was born was the busiest day of the year in this hospital, and everyone in there, everyone wanted to birth babies that day, and apparently it was really, really busy, which I believe was
Yeah.
busy. I'm not saying it wasn't, but
Yeah.
they had no rooms left really for like not the nice rooms left for when you recovery rooms. They didn't really have many recovery rooms left, and the only ones that they had left were like the shitty ones that they put us in. And but when this lady, the nurse said like, oh yeah, like the couple was complaining about the room, so we're gonna have to figure out a different room for them. And I remember verbally saying, they're complaining about a room. In my own delirium, I was like, they're complaining about a room. I was like, okay, and I like went back to sleep.
Yeah.
Little did I know that the room that this couple was probably complaining about was probably the room that they put me in. And when they took me out my bed and they took me to the room, it was not even a room. It was a closet. It felt like it was a closet because it was really, really small, but it wasn't even this way that it was small. It felt like it hadn't been cleaned. It felt like
not updated. Like it felt very old, like unused.
unused. I didn't even,
It
I
was
just,
really
I remember
bad.
going in there and I was like, well, this is kind of like a whatever room. But again, I was so delirious that I was like I was so drugged up because that anesthesiologist really tried to hit me with so much epidural because it wasn't working. So I was like, I didn't even think about it. All I wanted to do was for them to leave and for me to just sleep.
Yeah.
So I fell asleep. Mind you, the bed was in a weird position because they put the bed and the bed was like not straight, it was like angled. Didn't know why it was angled. In my head, I was like, they probably needs to be angled that way. It didn't.
Yeah. No, it was
and they
weird.
brought a bed for Charlie,
which was like a cot.
a cot. Yeah. And then I woke up from my nap and I was like, where's everyone? Where's my daughter? Where's Charlie? Like, what the F is happening?
Can I go into my
And
perspective?
I clicked a little thing. And I was like, the nurse came in and then behind her goes Charlie.
So I wake up from my Walking Dead nap where I wake up in a panic. Like, what day, what year is it? Because I took a 2-hour nap because I was exhausted. Wake up, look around, and she's not back in that room. So I can only surmise, I hope I'm using that word right, that this is not the room we're coming back to. And I guess I could have figured that out before, but no one told us anything. No one said like, hey, we're going to switch you to a different room.
They should have put me back in that room.
They should have. But so no one was there. I got up and I started to wander the halls of this hospital and just be like, where is my wife? And so I go to the front desk. It's like, do you guys know where a Sandra, my wife is? Sorry, not to use her full name.
It doesn't matter.
Like, do you know where my wife is? And they're like, she, like, they didn't even give me a clear answer. They said like she should be down the hall. So I was like, okay.
What am I gonna? What are you gonna do? Go like knock on every room, be like, hi.
Yeah, like it wasn't really clear on where I was supposed to go. So I just went down the hall and like any room that was open, I just like kind of like peered in from a distance. And they were all empty. It wasn't like I was peering in on anyone, but there were some empty rooms. And then I get all the way.
They were empty rooms.
I get all the way down the hall to like where the exit sign is. And there's a small room to the left. And I think I see your name written up. And I was like, oh, here she is. So I open the door and it is literally a broom closet. Like the smallest little quote unquote living area. The bathroom is a corner.
Complete, from the 1800s.
Like literally like the way you get water out of the faucet in the bathroom is there's a pedal. Like you have to pedal water in.
You're asking a person who just got a C-section
And it's the furthest room from everything. Like we're down near the exits.
Yeah, it's like far from the NICU,
So
which we had to walk to the NICU because Mia was not going to come to our room.
and I'm not trying to take it away from people who have had vaginal births. I'm sure you are depleted. I'm sure you're in pain. Not trying to take away. But if you had a C-section, can we get a room closer to the
With your
NICU?
child in the NICU?
Yeah, can we get a room closer to the NICU, please? But this is our first kid. We don't know what's going on. All I know is I found Sandra. I'm going to get our stuff from that room, bring it over here, kind of get settled in, make the best of a shitty situation, and try to make this room as functional as possible.
Yeah, and I'm over here being like, can someone give me an update on Mia? Like, I don't know what's happening with Mia.
I didn't know what was happening with Mia either. So, actually, to continue my story, I was the one that had to go out because you were bedridden. You couldn't move. So I went out to the front desk and be like, do you know where our kid is? Like, do you know where Mia is? And they said, oh, she's in the NICU. It's over here. And they have to give me like, I think a little bit of special clearance to go in there because she is being under watch. So they give me that. They say, this is what you have to do. This is like, you have to, obviously we're wearing masks the entire time, but very specifically wear a mask in there. Like they were very specific about it. So I get myself cleaned up, wash my hands, wash my phone. I go in there and she is literally under the plexi. I don't want to say it's glass, but it's plexiglass or something that she's in a container. They're helping her breathe. And there's our purple little daughter who's, you know, surviving, I guess. Like
Yeah, because she had a little oxygen.
she had an oxygen mask over
like
her
a
face.
breathing little feeding tube through her little mouth.
They were like feeding her through the pacifier or tube, whatever was in her mouth. They were feeding her that way. So we never got skin to skin.
No.
At the beginning. So we never got those very important introductory things that go on with having a child.
Yeah.
Which really sucked. And also we're confused. We don't know where anything is. So it's a really shitty way to end this whole saga that we're going through.
Yeah, it was not ideal at all. Like I really again, I was not going into my birth thinking I wanted certain things. I didn't want the candles and there's nothing wrong with wanting that. I think women should be able to have whatever they want during experience like that, but I didn't want any of that. I didn't care for any of it. I really just wanted a healthy baby and I was going to go with the flow of things because I felt like that was the best way for me to handle the situation. But the only thing I asked was, I just want skin to skin. And if I can't have skin to skin, I want Charlie to have skin to skin with her. Well, for obvious reasons, it couldn't be done, which we understand that it was because she needed to be taken into the NICU and she needed to be put into like a little breathing tube. The hard part of it all was that I didn't realize how it was going to affect me weeks after. Not having skin to skin with her because I was almost like in shock. I was almost like couldn't understand that I was a mom for a second. I was like, oh my God, I had a baby. And it wasn't that I didn't love her. I adored her from the moment I knew I was pregnant. But the connection that we formed was not fully there until weeks later when I was sitting in bed with her crying, trying to latch her onto my breast. And it all hit me at once that I felt very selfish, that I was making everything about me and my experience, that I never for a second considered that the first thing that Mia felt when she was born was pain.
Yeah.
Because not only does she have like people going on like trying to get her to breathe, but she had to have an IV. And for anyone who's received an IV before, that shit's painful.
Yeah.
And and I'm not saying that I didn't realize this at the moment when I saw her. Like obviously seeing her like that, when Charlie showed me photos of the way she was at the NICU because I couldn't see her yet, I was in pain. Like I wanted to see her. I was crying because I wanted to see her. And when the nurse, God bless her, I really do think she's amazing. She came in and she was my first nurse because they rotate nurses. The first nurse that came in when I was recovering, she also had a C-section. And she knew, she could connect with me on that end. And she said, listen, if at 4, you can stand up. I can take you to the NICU. And I was like, okay, perfect. Was I feeling 100%? Was I feeling not even 100? Obviously, I wasn't 100, but was I feeling okay? No, I was not feeling okay to do it. I still freaking did it.
Can I just say that that moment was like, it was like a moving moment because you really mustered all the energy that you had to be able to walk over there. And I knew that you weren't 100%. Like,
I
I
was
knew
not okay.
you were not okay, but you were like, no, I'm fine. I'm going to go see my baby.
Yeah.
Like, it was one of the rare moments when you actually see a human sum up almost superhero levels amount of courage and strength in order to do something was that moment.
Well, after
And it was
seeing
like
those photos, I was
crazy.
like, I just need to hold her. I need to touch her. I need her to feel some, like, that mom and dad are there.
Yeah.
Like, it just felt very unfair.
Yeah.
And when the nurse came in to take me, she said, okay, the reason why I need you to stand up is because I need you, because the room is not big enough.
Mm. And again,
I need to be able to you need you to be able to walk from your bed up until, like, outside the door to be able to get into the wheelchair so I can walk you all the way over to the NICU.
I want to say, like, it's not necessarily the fact that there was an emergency C-section that felt unfair. Like, obviously things happen. Like, you can't control everything, especially in a birth. But it's the way we were taken care of after the fact that felt very unfair. It was
I
a
just
lot of that.
a lot of miscommunication.
Hmm.
Like, I think all of the recovery nurses were great.
Yeah.
That goes to say there was really just whoever made the decision that I needed to go into that room really made the wrong call, because
Yeah.
someone who's recovering from a C-section shouldn't have to have a room where a wheelchair doesn't even fit.
Yeah.
Where where the room is the farthest away from the NICU, and she has to be walking back and forth, for the next couple of days to be able to breastfeed her child every 2 hours. Where the bathroom is like, you have to. No.
It you really felt like, I love our healthcare workers. Like, obviously they do a really hard job and they take care of people, but you really felt the moment when these people just looked at this as a job and us as like a number. And just
And
be
I
like,
think it
we
was
need to put these people there, whatever. Let's keep going because we have other things to deal with, which I understand, especially coming out of
pandemic.
the pandemic and everything. Like, I understand there's a lot happening, but it really sucks when you feel like you're just a number and you're just a problem to be dealt with rather than a person. And this goes into like our healthcare system as a whole, like, treating people like they're just a problem rather than a person. Like, I know it goes into bigger issues that we can talk about, but when you're really in that situation, it sucks. It really does suck. So I feel anyone who's gone into a hospital and felt like they were just an issue that someone had to deal with rather than a person with a legitimate health problem.
Yeah. And again, I know that our situation, I mean, I wasn't gravely ill either. And
No,
Mia
but I
was
mean, we
so
still had
healthy.
like
And
major surgery. We had like
yeah.
major
No, and
surgery.
that's one thing that I also want to make very clear. C-sections it's a major surgery. It's an
It is.
abdominal surgery. Your incision is this big. If the camera,
It's that big.
it's like what, 8 inches, 6 inches, 6 to 8 inches,
Hmm.
something like that. They have to cut through 5 layers of skin to be able to get to the baby. It's a major abdominal surgery. And
Hmm.
for eons, they've treated this as like just another C-section. And expecting a mom to recover in those circumstances, it's not fair. And it
Yeah.
was not okay. And the thing is this, that I learned a lot from the situation, because if there's one thing that I took from it is I need to learn how to advocate for myself. I'm not trying to be pushy and be like, I demand a better room or any of that. No. I just demand better communication, and I demand better uh a better room,
Yeah.
because I think I deserved it. And I think
Yeah.
we deserved it.
Yeah.
And the reason why I know that I'm not wrong either is because when ROB came in, she was like, uh, oh, this room is small.
Yeah.
And she said,
When someone from the hospital makes that comment, it's like, okay, guys,
and
what the hell
then
are we
that
doing?
she was like, I'll go and talk to them and see if they can change you rooms. And the reason could I understood why they probably, like, obviously if they had an empty room, they would have moved me to the empty room, but I know that if I would have pushed enough, maybe they would have put me in like a labor room that was not being used, because it is stated in their website, and I knew this before I even, when the hospital was picked for us, that um sometimes when you have your baby, they'll keep you in the same room that you labored, right?
Mm,
And when we used to walk the hallways down, like the hallway down to the NICU, a lot of the rooms were empty.
yeah.
And those rooms were delivery rooms. They were not recovery rooms, but they were delivery rooms that on the website it does state that sometimes they'll just leave you there. So why couldn't I just be put in one of those? In the case that there was a mom and they really ran out of rooms to
Honey, can you
deliver,
just... Yeah, sorry.
in the case that that they were running out of rooms, like delivery rooms, then maybe then I would have been okay to be like, there really is, this room is your last resort,
Yeah.
or why couldn't I just be put in a different room? It didn't make any sense.
It didn't make
And
any sense. It was real
it's
shitty.
about learning how to advocate for yourself, because
Yeah.
not only RB said it, it was also the person from the NICU. When finally we were able to bring Mia into our room, everyone was like, whoa, this room's really tiny. And not only that, but like it doesn't have the best accommodations for someone who just had a C-section.
Mhm.
Um
And then when, not to jump further down, but like when we got Mia into the room, she was very much like, did not want to be put down into the bassinet. Like she did not want to sleep there. So the nights that we were there were sleepless because we were trying to take care of
I
this
think
baby.
everyone's nights are sleepless. So
I
that
I
part, I think everyone experiences the same.
oh,
Because you remember hearing the baby down the hall that was crying the whole entire time.
true. I guess there was a nurse who was a traveling nurse that was a real BICTH. Because we were trying desperately to, like, new parents trying to figure out how to put this baby down. She did not want to be put in the bassinet. And there was this one night where we had the option for the NICU to take her.
So they had told us that the NICU was going to come in around 2 in the morning to take Mia for some testing.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, you have the choice of having us, like, we can keep her in here for the rest of the night so then you guys can get some rest. And I had said, like, no, we'll keep her in the room, like, have her get tested and come bring her back. Well, that night when we were trying to put Mia down, she really was not going down. All she wanted to do was to be held, which I've learned that that's what happens to a lot of babies. A lot of babies just, it makes sense. Thinking from their perspective, they're inside your belly and they're coming out into a new world that
And they don't want to be in the
they don't want
bassinet.
to be in the bassinet. That's
That makes
scary to
sense. That
them.
makes sense.
But it was really tough because, again, when you're recovering from when you're recovering from a vaginal birth, it sure is very difficult. When you're recovering from a C-section, it's also very difficult. So I was trying to hold her and I was like, okay, like,
Mhm.
but trying to, like, I would put her in the bassinet. She would stay there maybe for like 5 minutes and then she would start crying. But every time I would have to come up and try to get her, or like Charlie would have to come up to grab her to get for me, and I would have to, it was a lot of pain. I was in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
So the nurse came in. Mia was crying nonstop. And she said, okay, well, I'm going to go take her to testing. And I was like, she's like, do you want us? And she said it straight up, do you want us to keep her there so then you guys can get some rest? And I was like, and Charlie looked at me. He said, it's your call. And I said, okay, like, yeah, let's
Yeah.
just, if you want to, I'll come in the morning. And morning was like 6 in the morning. I would come back to feed
Yeah.
her. And then she made a comment that
An
didn't help the
unnecessary comment.
comment, said, well, kind of saying like, this is going to be your life now. Like, you guys have to kind of get used to this. Like, this is like,
Yeah, especially again, new parents who have never experienced this before and are trying to figure this out. It just was super, it was like a slap in the face where it's
it was
like,
a big slap in the face, because then she made
yeah,
me feel like I made the wrong decision, and as she's taking Mia out of the room, Mia's crying, and all I'm thinking is, I'm a horrible mom because I'm telling them to keep her there for like a couple hours so I couldn't sleep, and I shouldn't do that. I should be there with her.
yeah.
So I'm like, I start to desperately cry. Charlie's over here crying with me because he's like, you need to calm down. It's okay. We're doing the right thing.
I
But
think
I'm
we
so,
were sleep deprived, we were drained, like it was just a huge undertaking for us to try to like get through this whole hospital experience.
And then nurses tell you one thing and a different nurse tells you another thing. And it's like
Exactly.
everyone tells you so many different things about like how to deal with your baby that it's a lot. So anywho, we cry and
Sorry.
Charlie gets really upset. Like not because I'm crying, but because of what the nurse said. And he's so mad and he's telling me like this is bullshit. Like I'm not gonna listen to anything that they're saying because they're saying this thing and then they're saying that thing and like they're just
It's a lot because the nurses do say different things. They scare you because I think they have to a little bit about like SIDS, about all these things that could happen to your child. And it's super overwhelming with all this information to be like, all right, you have this kid. This is all the things that could go wrong. We have to tell you this. And there's no like real like, hey, it's gonna be okay. Like
there was that one nurse that
there
came.
was one nurse who did that, but it was one nurse
Well,
out of
I would
the
say two.
myriad of nurses.
Then these are the NICU, like these are the people the nurses who are taking care of the baby, not the nurses that are taking care of me, because that's different. They were
Yeah.
fine.
Out of the myriad of nurses that we experience, one or two give us some sort of like, it's going to be okay. You know, you're going to be fine. You're going to
So
figure it out. Everyone else is just like, this could go wrong. This could go wrong. This is what you have to do. This is what you have to do. And at the end of the day, when you get home, it's the best because then you get to decide
and every
how you're
baby
going to.
is different.
Every baby's
baby's
different.
gonna respond, and it's like, of course, your baby on this first week is a stranger to you. You don't know you don't know their different types of cry. You don't know what is hurting. You don't know anything. So of course you're gonna like that first week is survival. And the worst thing is that when you do get a C-section, you have to stay those days at the hospital, which you deal with those first days of your baby, getting to know your baby with other people's opinions
Mm-hmm.
that like sometimes just scare you. And you're just like, okay, well now what do I do? Like I'm a horrible person for doing that. And not to say that they're all horrible. Again, the next morning when I woke up, I came in, like we woke up and we rushed to the NICU. Um, she was passed out.
Yeah.
I didn't even feed her because they told me she's sleeping. Go back to rest. And the nurse who told me this, she said, because she saw that I obviously like was not okay. She said, "Don't worry, you guys made the right call. Like
Yeah.
it took the whole team over here to get her to calm down because
It took the whole team of nurses to get this baby to go down. Let me emphasize this. The whole team of nurses to get this baby down.
and the thing was
Experienced women who've had children and work professionally in a NICU it took all of them to take her down, and then two new parents are going to go
and
after. Like, come on, give us a break.
they believed that Mia was extra colicky because of the antibiotics that she had to take. Mind you, the antibiotics were given to her as preventative because they weren't sure if she would have had um, an infection, which she ended up not having an infection. We're really grateful for that.
Yeah.
But the reason why also they wanted to give her antibiotics was when they opened me up and they took her out, they realized that she had already pooped. She didn't eat her poop, which is really bad if babies eat their poop. She hadn't eaten her poop. There was no reason to believe she had, but they still needed to kind of do testing on her for that reason. And they also realized that she was sunny side up. So remember when I said, and probably this is kind of where we ended, but remember when I said that I started to feel my contractions after the epidural stopped working? They started to feel in my back and a lot of pressure. I think it had to do with that because when a baby's sunny side up, which means they're facing up towards your belly button,
Mm-hmm.
like in their backs towards your spine, um, you tend to have back labor, and those type of births are really difficult. Are they possible? Yes, you can have a baby sunny side up, but they're really painful and they're really hard for them to be born like through like vaginally. And if the baby's not positioned right, like low enough for a vaginal birth, they most likely end up in C-sections.
Yeah.
Which in this case, that's what ended up happening. I think Mia flipped at the last minute, and she was having a hard time getting herself positioned right for my birth canal. And because I'm also petite, my OB believes that my body frame was not big enough for her size because she was a big baby,
Yeah.
like for my type of body. And all that stress caused her heart rate to to go down.
To go down.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of what ended up happening in our birth story. It's a lot. There's actually obviously a lot more that we could go on and on about.
But that kind of encapsulates the entirety of our journey at the beginning when having Mia. So, I mean,
It was a little traumatic.
it was. I mean,
And I don't use that lightly because I don't like to be like trauma, but it was it was I didn't realize that having birth trauma is something that a lot of women experience.
yeah.
And I feel like I gotta have to thank Robin, who used to be my coworker and who also has a baby about the same age as Mia, literally by like 2 weeks. Um,
What's
and
her
when
full name?
Robin,
Robin.
Robin, oh, she's her last name. Well, it was Wilson,
Just
but
because I wanted to shout out Messy Play.
Messy Messy
So
Play kits.
yeah. So if
I'll
you look up Messy Play, they're kits for kids.
Can we put her kit, like her link on the description?
We could probably put her link in the description. I'll work
She
on that.
has like a business for it's called Messy Play Kits, and she creates like these kits that for kids to play with their hands and everything.
It's
And
like tactile.
yeah, it's really
fun
cool.
for
But
kids.
anywho, when after the fact that I posted on social media that Mia was with us now, she was like, Mia's here, blah blah blah. She messaged me and said, I hope everything went well, and I explained, not things didn't really go the way that I expected them to go. And she said, well, I just want you to remember that birth trauma is real and that it's a thing, and if you ever want to talk about it, she was there. So, and that was the first time that I realized, I think I'm dealing with it, but I didn't really know. And then through the months, I talked to a postpartum doula, not because I was for that issue, but I was talking to her to hire a postpartum doula for our job. And I was interviewing her, and we just had a conversation, and she mentioned that. And I realized talking about it, really talking about it, would help me. And I feel like it has helped me to kind of deal with the situation.
Yeah. And just to kind of close out, if you're a new parent, mother or father, whatever, it's gonna be okay. Like if you have a good, not, I don't want to say good, if you have an easier child who's able to go down and stuff, congratulations, good for you. But if you have a child that it takes a little bit more for them to go down to sleep, like they're a little more colicky, it gets better with time. And
It really does.
I know a lot of people told us that at the beginning, and you don't really feel that way because you're going through it. You got to go through it for you to really understand it does get better with time. They get used to you.
Fully.
They get used to your routine, and it's easier and easier as they grow. Now, do the milestones, do they kind of flip the script every time they hit a milestone? 100%.
Yeah.
It's like having a new baby almost every single time because they're learning how to walk, they're learning how to talk, they're learning how to use their voice.
Like they're teething, and that's rough on them sometimes.
Yeah.
Which me has been such a trooper. Like she has like 14. She has like 8 teeth out.
She really is. We like to say advanced because
No,
she
she's
has all
literally
she's hitting all
9
these milestones
She's 9
super
months,
early.
which she will be a special guest next week because her daycare is closed next week, and we're gonna have to film the podcast with her here. So we're gonna see how that goes. Maybe we'll try to do it while she's napping, but sometimes she only naps for like 45 minutes, and then she's like, "Hi, Daddy." So,
But yeah, she might be a special guest. Also,
announcements.
We will have a special guest coming up either this week or next week. We'll have a special guest come on to introduce a new segment for the Little Grain podcast. Get a little variety in here.
I'm really excited about that. I hope we
And
get to film it tomorrow.
I hope so too. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, thank you
Please
so much.
like, comment, and subscribe. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
And
Thank
if
you.
anyone who watches this wants to talk to me privately about birth experiences or birth stories or anything birth, like child related, please message me. I really don't mind. Like, I don't mind sharing
Mm-hmm.
everything, and I'm not gonna be giving my advice like you should whatever, but or opinion about certain things, because I generally feel that you know your child and you know best when it comes to raising them. But sometimes hearing opinions from other parents of what they did in certain situations helps, And whether that is like, how did it go with breastfeeding? Like, what positions did you try to be able to breastfeed better? What did you take to get milk supply, or what did you take to help engorgement, or like a couple of other crazy things that happen with breastfeeding, which is another episode. We'll talk about
we'll
that.
leave some links in the description below you guys can go to, and then also talk about your own birth stories in the comments, please. Let's have a discussion. Let's put them down there. um you know, this is
Yeah.
a open
And don't be
conversation.
scared about birthing, because everything works out. And we're just happy that Mia is okay. Nothing was wrong with her. Her breathing, she was fine afterwards.
She's a good, healthy baby.
Yeah, she's very healthy. So
All right. Well, thank you for joining
thank
us.
you. I guess this was longer than we wanted it to be, and we didn't
Actually,
get to
we hit
discuss.
1:30, so I think we're like on schedule. So
Okay. Well, I just
all right.
feel bad because we didn't get to talk to the other stuff that you wanted to talk about.
We'll talk about it in the next episode. We're finishing this story, and then we'll go on to
We
other
didn't talk about
stories.
Miranda Lambert. Just kidding. We don't care.
All right, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.